Feng Wei, interesting comment here. All right. He says lots of Kool-Aid on here. I'll know within the first 15 minutes of the first game whether they've managed to clean up the sloppy mess that I've been witnessing the past 4 years. So again, before Greg takes off on it, because he's got the Nebraska side, I'll take the neutral side. So no Kool-Aid from me, because sorry, Nebraska fans, because I love you being here, supporting the channel. For the most part, I don't care if Nebraska wins or loses. Like I'm just watching football. I just love watching football. And so I'm not rooting for Nebraska against Nebraska. That is the truth. So I cut it pretty straight.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, I'm going to have to deliver predictions sometime between now and kickoff, not just on this game, but I'm talking about the season. And I'm going to be wrestling with what I think is legitimate hope and improvement, with also the performance on the field, which I'm talking about the positive performance of staying with Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma, etc., against, well,
the field.
This has been going on for 4 or 5 years, and So I just think it's almost mathematically impossible for them to go 3-9 again.
I agree.
So that's pretty much out of the question. But how good are they? You know, I'm going to be wrestling between about 6-6 and 8-4. That's where I'm going to be.
7-5 feels like a comfortable spot. But we've talked about this before. I mean, if you start out those first 3 games of the year, if you start out 2-1, you start out 0-1, and then end up 2-1 going into that Oklahoma game, I think you're destined for a poor season. Now, if they start out 3-0 like they should, then look out. They're positioning themselves to have a pretty special year.
Yeah.
We've got to, let's not even bring that conversation up until we see them play in Dublin against Northwestern. And I'm not talking about they don't have to destroy Northwestern. They don't need to win all 3 of their first games by 40, 50 points. You just can't struggle in those games.
Yes.
You got to win by a comfortable margin. And I think if you do that, you give a lot of confidence to these guys that, quite frankly, aren't used to winning. That might be the biggest obstacle that you got to overcome, is to know what it feels like to win ball games. I mean, yeah, you know what it feels like to play Ohio State and Michigan to the end and compete your butts off, but end up on the losing side. You already know that. Now you got to experience the other side of that, the winning side of that, and get that culture back to Nebraska, where in the past years when it was not acceptable to come out of that locker room and lose a ball game. I mean, you expected to beat everybody on your schedule, and not just beat them. I mean, beat them down. And that's the thing that Nebraska fans have been waiting, chomping at the bit to get back to. And, I mean, obviously with the times now, you're not going to see that type of a program anywhere anymore. But just to get back to at least a little bit of that, where the culture, when your players expect to win each and every game, they go suit up for battle to go into. And I think that's just the biggest thing that young people right now don't really understand a lot of that. And you can teach them all that culture as much as you want. You can show them all the film, but until you feel that sensation out there on the field, you're just not going to get it.
Here's my take on the first month. So they've got those first 4 games before October 1st. They're all September games, August, September. Okay. Like you, now I rarely do this, but after they lost to Illinois last year, I don't ever remember doing this. I'm not one of these people that, oh, the season's over. It's August 28th. The season's over. Like I never do that.
I think I thought that.
But I thought, I looked at that schedule and I thought they couldn't lose that game. The schedule's too hard. And I couldn't find a path for them to get to a bowl game after that. I'm like, they needed to win that game. So this Northwestern game, even though the schedule's easier without Ohio State, Michigan State, still that's a Big Ten game. Yeah, so if you're just talking about the math of you got to have this many wins and you got to compete in the Big Ten West, so you got to beat those teams. It makes total sense. But yes, the psychological part of it, because of what this team's experienced.
It would be a complete. I think it would be a disaster if they lose to Northwestern. I think your ego kind of just is destroyed at that point. I hate to say that, it's only one game into the season, but I mean, just like you said last year, they end up and lose to Illinois, which, I mean, starting the season with a loss in conference.
Yeah.
That's just, you can't do that. I mean, because you're playing catch up the rest of the year, no matter what. I don't care who you are. You're always going to be that one game behind somebody, and unless you surpass that. So, it's just, you've got to get off to a good start and keep everybody involved and positive in the program. And we just haven't seen that in several years now.
So for me, a solid first month, and they could do better than this possibly, but I would think that this is a good solid month to get them into the season would be, they should beat Northwestern in a solid game. I don't expect them to blow their doors off and win like they did last year, 56-7. Or if they do, that'd be phenomenal. But I also, if they win on a last second field goal, hey, they've grabbed a conference win and they got the season started. Hey, great.
Yeah.
That's still.
And you got to think about the Northwestern Nebraska series. It's usually almost
true.
So,
and Northwestern, for as much as they were bad last year, and it doesn't look like they're going to be that much better this year, and there's a talent gap and all that. They're going to know their assignments. They're going to play smart. They're going to play scrappy, all that. But I'm looking at Nebraska like a solid performance. Like they win this game like 30-17. Like it's a solid like 10 to 2 touchdown win.
Yeah.
And then the North Dakota and Georgia Southern games, like you say, on one hand, you can't take a whole lot from them, but at the same time, you would think that they're going to win these games 38-10, 42-10, that kind of score.
Yeah, I mean those are two games that you're actually starting. You're trying to get a lot of looks at different personnel, and see what you got there at backup roles and stuff. Ideally, because you don't want to be in a dogfight with North Dakota going into the fourth quarter. I mean, we all know that, but I expect them to handle business there. Obviously, those two games and not be overlooking Oklahoma. But I mean, I think that after week one with Northwestern, if they can come out of Dublin with a win, they fly straight back here after the game because there's no bye week. They're strapping it up on the following Saturday, and I think if they get through that 3-game stretch, and obviously they're going to be favored in all 3 of those games. Oklahoma, I doubt they would be favored in that game, but I would give them a puncher's chance.
Oh,
absolutely, yeah. But then you look at the rest of the schedule, and they should probably be the favorite team most of the way through there. Until you get to a couple of those heavyweight games.
Yeah. So then, if they get through those 3 undefeated, and then to beat Oklahoma would be phenomenal, and they can do it. I think they've got more than a puncher's chance. I think they've got a 30 or 40% chance of winning at home.
Well, especially you got to imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like in Lincoln, having Oklahoma here again. Obviously, going back even to last year, that game's been penciled. Everybody's got that game penciled on their schedule, and it's a dogfight to get tickets for that game and to be a part of that atmosphere.